10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon and welcome to the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee meeting. Today is January 12th, 2022. Thank you for joining. We are going to go ahead and start right into the agenda. I was just sharing with the committee that unless we have another member show up, we won't be making any recommendations or having any voting today. But I do think that because you're here, we should go ahead and carry through with the conversation and the information. I think we have a really important kind of general topic. Most of everything falls under small business and economic recovery that we want to talk about today, along with some hub survey results. So we will go ahead and start off. Our first presentation, request is for a small business response fund. And together we have our Director of Economic and Community Development, Courtney Pogue, as well as Councilwoman Toombs, to kick off the conversation about how we can help our small businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. Let me make sure your microphones are on.
This one's working.
There you go.
There we go.
Good afternoon, committee members. I hope everyone is well. I'm happy to help present to you today. When I found out about Director Pogue's, When I found out about Director Pogue's economic development plan, I was very intrigued by it. As a council member that represents a majority African American district, I was primarily concerned with how this economic development plan could assist the minority communities in my district. As we all know, minority-owned businesses and minority communities have suffered disproportionately due to COVID-19. And I had a significant concern because we have received a large amount of ARP funds. We will receive another large deposit later this year. And when you look at the data from the CARES Act funding, when we did small business assistance last year, we touted that, about 30% of the CARES Act funds went to minority-owned businesses. But when you drill down to the zip codes and look at the zip codes that I represent in District 2, 37208, 37218, there are about 1,300 businesses in the North Nashville, Bordeaux area. Looking at the same track that we use for our participatory budgeting process, 1,300 businesses, 50 of them received CARES Act funding. If you look at the pathway lending process that was used with the CARES Act funding, there were 748 transactions. 53 of those went to loans to Black-owned businesses, 44 to loans to Hispanic-owned businesses. In 37208 and 37218 total, $348,000 went to assistance to Black-owned businesses, $290,000 went to assistance to Hispanic businesses. And also, when you look at the transactions done in majority African-American zip codes, half of those transactions were to white-owned businesses. So my hope is that with the ARP funds, we do significantly better than that. Because there's an urgent need in minority communities that have suffered disproportionately due to COVID-19. So I actually filed a resolution along with Councilwoman Hurt, essentially beefing up the $10 million ask from Director Pogue, because I don't feel that's sufficient, and Director Pogue's plan addresses disadvantaged zip codes, but looking at the county as a whole, and like I said, I have particular concern about North Nashville and Bordeaux because they've been left out essentially of previous relief efforts. And so I would like to see money specifically allocated to North Nashville and Bordeaux. I'd like to see money allocated to staffing for Director Pogue's office so that he can do the appropriate outreach, the appropriate technical support for minority-owned businesses. I'd asked for $70 million over 2 years. I've been told that I need to reduce that. And so we're looking at a $35 million ask for this year. That includes the $10 million that's in Director Pogue's proposal. And so as you're listening to Director Polk, who this is his lane, he has lots of data and expertise, I'd ask that you think about the impact that COVID-19 has had on minority communities and minority-owned businesses, and keep in the back of your mind that previous assistance has not been sufficient at all, and that we need to do much better with these ARP funds. We've spent about $95 million almost, and we haven't done anything for small businesses or minority communities. So we need to make sure that we're making a significant investment. The ARP funds, one of the primary focuses of the legislation that set up those funds is equity. And so we need to make sure that we're thinking about equity when we're talking about our small businesses, when we're talking about our minority communities and our minority-owned businesses. So with that, I will turn it over to Director Polk.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Polk. I'm the Director of Economic and Community Development for Metro Nashville. I'm happy to be here. I've been on the job roughly about 10 months now. And so before you today, we're going to discuss the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund. One of the things I did before I actually kind of crafted this program is look at the CARES program that you had before you in the previous year to address or work with small businesses. And so I wanted to really create a program with this Small Business Recovery Fund that was equitable and looks at, working with some of our zip codes that have not received capital or sufficient capital to support the needs of recovery. And so working with my partners at Pathway, who's here, Clint, please raise your hand. We want to talk about and really craft a new program to talk about recovery here in Nashville. Pretty much all around the country, and work with all the cities have utilized their ARP dollars in some capacity for small businesses. And so here in Nashville, we have crafted a program and requesting $10 million to support small businesses recovery. Some of the data points we looked at in crafting this program, we know there's roughly about 27,000 businesses here in Metropolitan Nashville that have 50 employees or less. As far as those businesses, we understand that roughly the average revenue for those businesses are about $780,000 for those businesses. So we say we're a big city, but we're really a small business city within a big city. So we want to support our small businesses and make sure we have the right resources and the capital resources to support them. So in crafting this program, we looked at really some of our impacted zip codes and census tracts and opportunity zone areas and the stress census tracts to make sure that we can craft a program that supported them. As some of the criteria for eligibility for this program is: one, the business must be located, of course, in Nashville. Two, the business must show some type of impact from the COVID-19 pandemic. Three, we want to support businesses that have revenues less than $1 million, which kind of goes back to the point where we know most of our businesses here in Nashville, especially small businesses that have 50 employees or less, make roughly about $800,000 a year. And they have roughly about 6 employees. So we wanted to craft a program that was geared toward businesses that had, one, revenues less than $1 million, and then two, had 50 employees and less. But also look at ways to make sure we had a program that provided both grant capital and loan capital. So breaking that out, we are looking to break down the $10 million into 2 buckets, $6 million for grants and then $4 million for loans. And so as far as looking at the grants, we also will look at another bucket of one, $3.6 million to be geared toward some of those underserved zip codes and census tracts here in the city or metropolitan area based upon 7 criteria. 7 criteria being opportunity zones, low to moderate income census tracts, 2 areas of high unemployment, 3 areas that show 30% or more poverty. So that covers a wide swath of Nashville in which we're trying to really address. There's actually a map attached to your document that you have on the back page that shows the 7 distressed areas we want to focus on with this program. And then looking at the size of the grants, we're looking for grants that will range from $5,000, $10,000 to $25,000. That were based upon payroll and annual sales. And then crafting a loan program providing inexpensive capital in which up to $100,000 can be utilized to support businesses here in Nashville. So this is one of the pathways we wanted to craft the program. And then marketing the program, we'll make sure that we're doing a number of virtual information sessions, but also having information sessions both in English and Spanish to make sure we're providing information to everyone within the metropolitan area. Good afternoon, Representative Love. Should I continue? All right. Information sessions, we, like I said, want to be held in English and Spanish. We have a PowerPoint put on the city's website that kind of outline the program to make sure we're reaching all audiences throughout the city. We'll make sure the funding process is open and equitable to everyone, and therefore creating more or less like a intake process. And once we have an intake process, that would transition into a application process. So it provides a equitable and equal distribution to the capital dollars, not a first come, first served basis, in going by a first come, first served basis, those businesses that are typically prepared typically get the money. And I think we saw that with the PPP program, in which those businesses that had the resources and the accountants and the legal staff can actually got the capital first, while the businesses that needed the hand-holding and the outreach and the kind of the mentoring were kind of left out for all the various federal dollars. So I think we're trying to craft something that's a little more equitable and a little more different than we've had before. And some of the eligible uses of the program would be grants to be utilized to support losses or expenses incurred between March 1st of 2020 onward to March 31st of 2022. They can include payroll costs, commercial rent or mortgage payments, insurance, utility, costs for PPE equipment, HVAC costs, other machinery and equipment to support and operate in business, and also looking at ways to help those businesses address the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Businesses that would not be eligible for this program, if you're engaged in political or lobbying activities, if you are a legal business enterprise or business, you would not be eligible for this program. Other business types that are not seen fit within the codes and regulations of Metropolitan Nashville, and also looking at ways to businesses that have received some type of other incentive via the PPP program or the small SBA restaurant revitalization program. And so some of the documents you would need for the program, typical W-9s, a federal document, your registration with the Secretary of State, registration in Davidson County, your P&Ls, profit and loss statements, proof of business location operations. We want to support businesses that are here in Davidson County and that are operating in Davidson County. So, and also showing a schedule of ownership and a proof that you have some type of business organization, a type C organization, type S corporation, LLC, LP, and so on. And as we craft this program, we want to provide data on the back end to make sure, one, we're showing where the loans were or grants were in each zip code, but also break it down by council district. Two, showing the demographic information about the business owners, African American, Hispanic, the various segments of our population to make sure they are being well represented. Then also looking at annual business data. Who are our businesses here in Davidson County? How much are they making? Are they making $100,000? They're making $1 million, and so on, to make sure we have good data so we can basically show our taxpayers we're spending the money in an equitable fashion. And then two, what type of award are we providing? Is it a loan? Is it a grant? What's the award status? So showing all this information, make sure it's a fully transparent process from beginning to end. And then make sure also we're showing we're making investments in these distressed areas, as I outlined as far as the 7 distressed areas that make up the key criteria of creating this program. Like I said before, the distressed areas consist of low to moderate income census tracts in Davidson County, the opportunity zones in Davidson County, those new market tax credit eligible qualified census tracts, areas of census tracts that have a poverty rate greater than 30%, census tracts that have a median family income that's greater than less than 60% of the moderate metro area median income, census tracts that have an unemployment rate 1.5 times the national average, and then also census tracts with a population change greater than less than 6%. So I think we have our last census data that just came out recently, so we want to kind of follow those guidelines. So let me kind of harp on the unemployment rate of 1.5%. As Councilmember Toombs has spoke about, when we looked at North Nashville, we look at 37208 and 371218. We know that the unemployment rate is basically 5 times the citywide average. For example, in November, the unemployment rate was 2.6% for the metropolitan area. If we look at the area where we had a community-based budgeting process, the unemployment rate is 10.6% for that area. 10.6%. And the largest segment of an unemployment population in the area is our 16 to 24-year-old individuals looking for jobs, which is 15.8%. Meaning that 15.8% of those individuals are children between 16 and 24 were unemployed. And you look at the overall, the key strength of our workforce in that area, 25 to 54, 9.9% of the individuals in the area were unemployed. So we want to focus on those areas, but also look at ways of other areas throughout the metropolitan area where we know we have unemployment rates that are 3, 4, 5, and 6 times our metropolitan average. So this is the way to, one, engage those businesses, but also encourage those businesses to hire locally, to hire individuals from their community to make sure they're back in the workforce. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and really encourage you to ask questions, but also look at this program as a key to really be building recovery. If we look at our top 30 cities, they all have launched some type of recovery program in the past year or so. So we may be a little late to the game, but nevertheless, we are here now. And I think we have a great opportunity to address the disparities and the needs within Nashville. Councilmember.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I do have 2 requests. Councilmember Toombs, can you send those stats that you read out loud about the number of Black-owned businesses that were helped in Nashville? And so we have all that data. If you could send that today, that would be great. And then, Director, if you could send the unemployment data, that would also be very helpful. So we have that. I do have a couple of questions. So I do see on the business eligibility, I see farmers market vendors on there. I know that we have another request from the fairgrounds today. So I don't know if that's duplicative or if you guys have spoken to each other about that. Okay.
So I think that would be something we can definitely address, but I think this is really supporting the vendors that operate within the farmers market, that may need capital to help them recover from the pandemic, but also help them kind of reposition themselves and pivot outside of the pandemic. I think one of the keys for small business recovery is how we help businesses pivot, but also providing technical assistance and support to those businesses that may want to pivot. So I think as we kind of work with Pathway, Clinton, you want to say anything and chime in, please. But I think as we kind of pivot there are ways to provide the hand-holding and mentorship and the education to help the businesses kind of pivot. And so this program is kind of one of the ways we wanted to help address that.
Got it. Councilmember Toombs, can you reread the businesses that received support, specifically if you had white-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, and Hispanic businesses, and if any other demographics real quick, just so I have that in my head?
So the data that I jotted down for my talking points was using the same census tract that we use for the participatory budgeting, which is North Nashville and Bordeaux. There are 1,300 businesses in that area. 50 of those businesses received CARES Act funding. Using the Pathway lending program that we use to disperse that money to small businesses, there were 748 transactions. Of those, there were 53 loans to Black-owned businesses, 44 loans to Hispanic-owned businesses. And then looking at specifically at zip codes 37208 and 37218, which is again North Nashville and Bordeaux, $348,000 went to assistance to Black-owned businesses, $290,000 went to assistance to Hispanic-owned businesses, and then looking at the transactions, and I don't have that specific number, but I can get it. Looking at the transactions that were done in majority Black zip codes, half of those transactions were done with white-owned businesses.
Okay. Okay.
Talking about grants. When you're referring to the Pathway Lending Program, we're talking about grants. This were grants, not loans. Is that correct? Okay,
Right.
I mean, because that's an important first, because my questions relate to that. Just wanted to clarify
This
that.
is the CARES Act funding from last year.
Yeah, they were grants.
Yeah.
And we do have that information. We can break it down by zip code. I would feel better getting all of the source data directly from the final numbers and giving you those percentages, however you want them broken out, if you want them by zip code.
Hey, Clint, since you're here, do you want to kind of chime in about, I guess, the program that you manage for the CARES program, and I guess the, percentages and the data, because you guys have all that data, I believe, correct?
Oh, hold on.
Thank you. We do have all the data, and we have provided all that data to Metro Nashville, including yourself. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, some 900 fundings, and I want to say 1,400 or 1,500 plus applications that came in, some of which were not able to reach the thresholds because of the CARES Act requirements for validation. And so that was one of the constricting points that we ran into in that process.
Councilwoman Gamble?
Thank you, and thank you both, Director Pogue and Councilmember Toombs, for coming with the presentation today. This is something that has been a top of priority for this committee, and looking at the responses so far from our rescue plan survey, it is something that's also on the minds in the community. Just a little bit of clarification from the $10 million request for the Nashville Small Business Recovery. How does the overall request in relation to Councilmember Toombs' resolution for $35 million, how do they connect? And specifically, I'm looking at pieces for this outreach. I realize that the $10 million request here is for grants and loans to small businesses. Is there funding set aside for staffing in order to shore up this plan? Is there funding set aside for partnering with organizations that can help with the hand-holding of small businesses that need it, that can help with the just awareness of this program for those businesses, particularly in the North Nashville community, whether it's the Black Chamber, the Bordeaux Business Group, the North Nashville Business Coalition? There are several organizations. So are there any efforts to work with those organizations so that we can make sure that we're getting to the root, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And Councilwoman Gamble, that's what my Councilwoman Hurd and I's resolution attempts to address. So the resolution was $70 million over 2 years, so 35 for this year, and that would include the 10 for Director Pogue's proposal as presented, with an additional, I have to do some quick math. I'll just say with additional money for North Nashville and Bordeaux specifically, as well as an allocation for the appropriate staffing to do the outreach and whatever else will be needed to help people understand what the program is about, to walk them through the program. And we had talked about perhaps using the participatory budgeting process that we use already for the funds that would be dispersed in North Nashville and Bordeaux. And that's a suggestion because I attended a community meeting for the Jefferson Street CAP. And what was reiterated several times by community members was, give us the money and let us decide what to use it for. And so no one knows best what needs to be done to help businesses in North Nashville and Bordeaux than the folks who are in North Nashville and Bordeaux. And so that's and we've created a process for that already with participatory budgeting. We know how that works, but we also know we need a lot of manpower to make that program be successful. And so funding for North Nashville and Bordeaux would be in addition to the 10. I think the 10 is not enough. Our small businesses need a lot of help. Our minority-owned businesses need even more help because, again, they've been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. So you're looking at the ask is 35, but at a minimum, 10 plus, because Director Pogue has done a really good job of crafting a program. This is his area of expertise. And so at a minimum, he needs 10 to do the program as is. But when you're talking about setting aside money specifically for North Nashville and Bordeaux, I mean, I would like to see at least $5 million specifically for North Nashville and Bordeaux. And that's not enough, but it's something. We need to show that we care about these, our minority communities when we see the suffering that has happened that's disproportionate to the rest of the folks in the city.
And it's kind of add into that. You look at the PP.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I go?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And just looking at some of the PPP data, you know, we saw a number of transactions throughout Nashville. And you look at North Nashville and Bordeaux, the number of PPP loans that took place there, there's very minimal in comparison to other parts of the city. The same thing with Southeast Nashville, the number of PPP loans that were actually transacted. So there's a need for capital. There's a need for programming on a local level. There's a need for capital on the state level and a federal level to kind of pivot and support our small businesses. Like I said, we have 27,000 businesses that have 50 employees or less in Nashville. We have to figure out a way to support those businesses that may need capital and actually need the hand-holding and mentorship and the guidance to kind of, you know, access some of these programs. So this is just one way to really address that. I think as we move forward, I think there's a request today, maybe not today.
And we have a quorum.
To also fund a plan for economic development, which is kind of the basis of really addressing the needs for the community. If you look at the top 30 cities in this country, from New York being number 1, LA being number 2, state Chicago's number 3, Houston number 4, and look at those top 30 cities, we're number 22. Out of those top 30 cities, they all have a plan and strategy for economic development, how to create a program, a policy to provide incentives, support small businesses, support workforce, to look at redeveloping our corridors, if it's Dulesville Pike or Murfreesboro Pike, but also look at ways to support Jefferson Street, Buchanan Street, and Clarksville Highway to really support those areas, to make sure we're providing capital to those corridors, to make sure we're supporting our small businesses. How we best attract the grocery store. You know, if we're looking at 37218, that's our largest zip code by a landmass, but there's only one mainline grocery store that covers roughly 90 square miles. We have to do a better way of attracting the resources to those areas to provide the right incentive package to attract those resources. I believe we don't have incentive policies. As things would come before you for a tax abatement or a pilot agreement or a TIF district, what is our actual incentive policy universally where everyone understands? If you're attracting a large corporation, if you're attracting a grocery store, what is the guidelines that they must adhere to be attracted to Nashville? What is our retention strategy? How do we retain our business base here in Nashville? What are some of the programs we can actually put together to make sure we're addressing our business base here? We haven't created a strategy. So it's very key to have that universal, comprehensive economic development plan and strategy for Nashville. Like I said before, our top 30 cities have one. We don't have a local plan. We have a regional plan with our chamber, but we have a local plan to address the community-based needs as far as the terms of economic development.
Well, can I just, there's a couple, and I know Jose wasn't, and then I wanted to actually, couple people in line, but one comment that I think is really important that, again, if you go back to our original guiding principles, we really looked at this, everything in 2 tranches. And this $10 million was never intended to be the final amount. We talked about, I know Courtney had conversations with the administration, and the administration is in full support of additional funding. I think what we really need to be careful of is the appropriations that we make before we have the second tranche of funds that allow us to make more appropriations. We can't appropriate more than we have available to appropriate. So we don't want to, we said this even with the affordable housing, we wanted to do 20, now and 20 in the future, we did 40. Well, we've ended up appropriating 40. Now, we may come back to address some of that just from a cash flow perspective, but we don't want to start really getting into tracking every ARP dollar in a cash flow. We have to really look at our normal process of appropriating funds. So I think it's really important for you all to know that the intentions of the administration is not $10 million and gee, we've done small business and we're great. The idea is that let's start with 10. Something that Courtney's getting at is really important, and I don't want to get our requests, out of order or merged, but you're going to also hear from Courtney talking about a plan, and that we need that plan, and that once we have more information, we may want to tweak, this recovery fund, and we may want to make changes to it. So this committee I know we only meet monthly, and that might seem not frequent enough, but it's still pretty nimble. And remember that these funds are available to be obligated through 12/31/24. So we need to be able to also react to what happens successfully. So I just think that's really important to keep in mind. But I also, you heard Councilwoman Toombs that Councilwoman Hurt is a co-sponsor. And I just wanted to invite you, if you had any other comments to the resolution or to the additions to North Nashville as a guest today.
Thank you very much. I absolutely do. Because I have spent 40 years working in that community, and 22 plus have been specifically with small businesses and trying to build economic viability for the Jefferson Street community. And Director Pogue is absolutely correct when he say that there has to be capital available for these small businesses. And not only for those small businesses individually, but those that are part of the ecosystem, the banks, the credit unions, and the other vendors that they may utilize in order for them to carry out their businesses, have to be able to provide those same kinds of resources and funds that are needed for them to be successful. I have spent quite a bit of time in the last 6 months looking at presentations, listening, reading as it relates to the ARPA funds, as I serve as the president of NBC Leo, which is the National Black Caucus of local elected officials, the largest constituency group for the National League of Cities. And just this past weekend, ending on yesterday, I participated in the Mississippi Black Caucus's conference, annual conference. And it's really interesting to me that the same conversations are being held there as they are here, for the disparities are consistent throughout. And, I hear you saying that we can't appropriate more than we have, but none of this talk was mentioned when we were appropriating $20 million for the Barnes Fund, and I am definitely supportive of affordable housing. But when you look at where the funds are appropriated under that, it is still going in a disparaging way to those nonprofit and agencies that are not minority, and there's a disparity within those. And when this first came out with the CARES Act, I spoke with Councilmember Gamble a lot, and she did direct me to pathway lending. And I know I spoke with Hank Helton on a number of occasions. And I am not trying to point the finger at anyone, but the thing of it is, for me, is that a lot of the small businesses, they talk about the revenue of those small businesses, but they don't talk about the expenses. So while they may have $1 million worth of revenue, nobody talked about the fact that they had $1.5 million worth of expenses. So that means that they are $500,000 in the hole. Now, when we talk about pathway lending and some of these other institutions that receive administrative funds to help carry out the work that needs to be done to help these small businesses, we had $658,000 that was given in loans and grants to minorities. And there are 9 individuals on the staff with pathway lending, and their salaries together is almost $1.7 million. 9 individuals. So for me, we're talking about supporting small businesses in our minority communities, which make up about almost 35% of the population here, and we are not able to give them not even a fourth, maybe, of what a staff of individuals are making at an institution that is serving these small businesses. Something is wrong with that, and we need to do something about it. Now, the things that I've heard and I've listened to on the playbook for ARPA funds and all of that, it is intended for these funds to go to small businesses, small communities that need it the most. And where we've given out $95 million already, I'm not sure why it is that we've got so much restriction. I appreciate this $10 million, but it is nowhere nearly enough to help build capacity. And it reminds me when MLK says that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And it most certainly is. And this is one of those projects where I think that there can bring more equity if we are intentional about it, if we are as much intentional about bringing more balance as we are in where we have had disparities, then I think we'll be well on our way.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hurt. All right, I know we had, yeah, then I just want to keep going in order. Okay.
I just wanted to give one additional number to Councilwoman Gamble, because I did talk with Director Pogue, not to talk about him like he's not sitting right here, but about staffing and what it would cost for him to have the staff that he actually needs to do the economic development plan, to run a program. And my understanding in it is that it's $3 to $5 million.
Okay, so let me go back in order of hands. Jose, did you still have a question or a comment? And let me get your mic. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to try to articulate what I'm thinking. There's a lot happening here, right? And so first I was going to make just a clarification comment, because I was confused about hearing this number, the 35 million, not seeing, as a member of this committee, and for those that, I just want to remind, there's some of us who are community volunteers who come to these meetings, and we're not in the weeds. And so you guys are breathing and thinking about this 24/7. And so some of this information is new to us, or at least certainly new to me. And so I'm just trying to digest and catch up on what's going on, because what I have in front for today's agenda is a $10 million. And so all this other context is very helpful. And so my first comment was going to be, can you kind of set the context for this conversations that we're having, because I was lost. So that has happened. Thank you. I do have questions, and so we can proceed. I do have questions in particular about this proposal today, because I think that that's what we're going to be asked to vote on today, right? And so not diminishing this very, very important conversation, right? And I personally, I'm just not sure if this is the right moment to have it, if we are the ones that need to be having it. If it needs more time for this conversation to be had, there is no doubt. I operate in the same space, right? And there is no doubt of the value, of importance, and need of supporting our small businesses. And I want to have that conversation. But I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around what, as the members of this committee today, if what we're asked to do is to vote on this, then I have questions about this particular program and how it's been presented and all of that. That's my comment. We can go into the questions later.
Okay. And
I don't know if that's helpful or more confusing.
no, you are correct. I mean, there's a whole lot to it. We have a specific task at hand, but we also need to make sure that we're aware of the bigger picture and a bigger ask, if not today, in the future and near future, when I don't mean to defer it. So I'm going to go with Councilwoman Gamble, and then I see Councilwoman Sepulveda. And let me get Mike's.
Thank you, and thank you, Jose, for that, because I think the clarification is important that, yes, we have this proposal for $10 million in front of us. However, just like we've had other proposals and have made recommendations to increase those amounts, we have that flexibility here too, and I think that needs to be considered. In fact, as we continue with this discussion and get more information about funding that is needed for support staff to carry out this program, for additional funding for outreach, working with community partners, whether it's participatory budgeting or business groups that have been working within these communities for many, many years that we can partner with, like we did with the previous CARES Act, with chambers and others. So I would like to get more information about those funding needs and add those to this pot. Also echoing what Councilmember Hurt said, and looking at this is $10 million is not enough to address the needs that we know of as far as business recovery, whether it's loans or grants. So looking at what would be a better number. I know 70 million is ideal, but we know that's unrealistic at this time with the amount of money that we have available to allocate. But what is a more realistic number? If it's 35 million, then getting more information in that, with that, so that we can consider that along with this as well.
Councilman Sepulveda?
Thank you. I could finish my questions. I also wanted to state a couple of things. I think it is important that we all do recognize that there's disparity when it comes to administrating funds, not just here, but across the state, the country, really. So I do think that's important, and I do think that we need to reevaluate the specific amount. What I'm going to say, and it's what I've been saying at every meeting, and I know people get tired of this, but I do think that we need to slow this down at least one more meeting. Why do I say that? Because we just received the preliminary report from the survey that we got out. That survey is out until the end of the month. I think it would be good to have a big picture as to how much we should allocate, right? If it's more than 10 million, then that would be great, and we could proceed forward and have a plan. We already have a draft plan, correct? So this is pretty good information. It would just be, tweaking numbers potentially and adding one or two items that were important to the community. I think we would be doing a disservice to the plans you all want to get accomplished and to the community as a whole if we don't have the rest of this survey available. Because when we look at the preliminary survey, right, where it says small business and economic relief, so the highest is 1.86, the lowest is 3.07. It's at a 2.43, right? So it's sitting somewhere near the middle, bottom middle. So if we have more community members who think that is a bigger priority, we have time to move that up. And we could do that pretty quickly. This will close at the end of the month, which means by the next meeting, we can talk about not just 10 million, but Councilmember Toombs and Councilmember Hurt's proposal to go higher than that potentially and have a full picture as to what Councilmember Toombs' resolution specifically says. That is different from Director Pope's proposal here. So we have a robust discussion. To Jose's point, right? Some of us are volunteers, and so we don't have the whole picture. And so that is what I'm going to suggest for today. Just a one meeting. That's all I'm asking. Just until the next month when this survey is done. And then you don't have to hear about me saying, let's slow the things down again.
Okay, I've got Representative Love and then Sarah.
Thank you, and thank everyone for their comments. I want to make a note of a few things that I'm recalling. I could be wrong about these things, but when we first began working with CARES dollars, if I'm not mistaken, we recognized an urgent need to provide rental assistance. We all galvanized and said, let's get $10 million out the door as fast as we could to at least send a message to the city that we needed to get this done, and we heard people's voices. Second thing I'll bring up is the fact that my observation has been from my work with the state level ARP funds, certainly CARES Act committee. It's very difficult for small businesses to qualify for a lot of what we put out at the state level. They have a very difficult time. They don't oftentimes have the paperwork. They don't have the ability to bring somebody on to help them fill out the paperwork. And so what has happened over the past year is that a lot of small businesses have fallen down, to Director Pogue's point, because they could not get support. I recommended plenty of folks to apply to the Department of Revenue to state because we had funds left over, but they were responded, Representative Love, the paperwork inundates us so much that we just gave up and said, this is too much. That's the value I see in what this proposal brings. It makes it a lot easier to, one, get money out the door faster. It also reaches those folks who don't have the wherewithal and the staff, the financing to hire somebody to come in and look at the books and go over them. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, we were supposed to initially hear this at the November meeting.
Correct.
November, December, January, February. I appreciate the concern, Lord knows I do, as a legislator, about the need to study and come back and review. I also understand that processes can sometimes cause more damage, unintended, because the wheels of government turn slow. And another meeting may cause a business to be closed permanently, unable to reopen, because they could not get some support in place. I would like to offer to suggest that we go with the recommendation now in the same spirit that we did with rent relief, recognizing the emergency, the importance, the need to shore up some businesses. And then when resolutions are brought, you can always come back with another proposal that is more robust and expansive. But right now, and again, out of respect, I understand the questions, but I've also seen when we had to do things at the state real fast because we recognized there's some issues, and we got some stuff out the door as fast as we could, with the caveat that we could come back and provide more funding. So that's what I would suggest, is that we consider those things. One, we have previously gotten money out the door real fast for another emergency. Two, this will be month 4 if we do this, from when the director obviously recognized there was an issue that needed to be addressed in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Love. Let me go to Sarah. Sarah Finley.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this presentation. I just have a couple of conceptual questions about the proposal, because I understand there's this backdrop of a much more significant request, and as Jose said, what's before us is this specific one. When we met to talk about small business relief with the CARES Act funding, you know, we used and relied heavily on partners like Entrepreneur Center and NBIC, and to a lesser extent the Chamber, but others, to help get word out, to provide technical assistance to companies. And then also we created a grant program through Pathway Lending. And it was very intensive in terms of how many people we had to rely on in order to implement the program. I'm a little confused conceptually here. We've talked about having funding legislatively to enhance the director's office to have staff, but then this proposal talks about using a third-party vendor. And so I'm just a little confused about just how this would be implemented. So that's just one sort of conceptual thing I'm trying to get my head around, is if we were to say yes on this, what does that really look like in terms of how it's administered? The second thing is, I noticed that excluded from the eligible businesses are those that have gotten funds from either PPP program or SBA program. Is the goal to, and I'm very interested in, actually one of my questions was to ask Representative Love about sort of the impact of state programs. Is the goal to find businesses that have not gotten any support, or is it that if they have received money from the state or from the CARES Act funding, that they are eligible, but just may need some additional assistance? I'm just sort of trying to get a sense of exactly how we're trying to target the potential recipients here in terms of how this will be implemented.
So, Director Pogue, if you'll respond to that first, and then if I may, Director Pogue and I asked Clint Gwynn here with Pathway to join us on a call to talk about some of these administrative type, you know, the logistics really of the administration of this. And then I would actually, Director Pogue, when you're finished, I'd like to have Clint, if you would, talk a little bit about, because one of the things that you mentioned, Sarah, that had come up was kind of the wraparound services. And we did hear how important that was. And I think that's important to understand how that's embedded in the loan program. So start us off, Courtney.
I think from an efficiency perspective of getting the information, if I can, before he answers the question, tag on to, because my questions as it pertain are related to this. Okay. And so maybe we can just put all the questions out and then give you the microphone and then throw back all the info, if that's appropriate. Okay. That makes sense?
Go for it. Okay.
Yeah, because similarly, I was having some of the same questions as they pertain to the proposal in front of us. The one big question is that differentiation of if you had access to PPP or idle loans, does that mean, or grants, does that mean, or the loans that became grants, but does that mean that you're excluded or not? The third party to administer this program, I see that it's clear that, yeah, there's a discrepancy between what I'm hearing and what this says in terms of having a third party administer it. To the extent that because documentation, the issues of documentation, complexity of accessing traditional funds that have been out there, the introducing or the concept of micro businesses, self-employed individuals that may have 2 or 3 folks that support them but are not W-2 employees, like how how does that play? Maybe that's getting too granular, but how are these funds intended to support that lady who has a cleaning business, who has 2 or 3 of her peers that are all together, and is that the type of micro entrepreneur that this is intended to help? And finally, I'm just curious about this notion of the lottery, from what I read from the proposal, the putting everybody in a pot and then pull, if I understand it, pulling some names out, and some get a grant and some get a loan. Is that the intention and kind of the spirit behind that strategy? Thank you.
All right.
So I guess starting with question number 1 about third-party administration. It's quite common around the country to have a third-party administer this program. If you look at our capacity here in City Hall, it's just me and Eric and Fabian kind of overseeing a $10 million program. I don't think that would be fair to the citizens of Nashville, nor would be efficient for the citizens of Nashville. We'll be here for the next 2 years trying to process $10 million. So it needs a third-party administrator to kind of manage this program, both from the front end to working with the applicants and managing the actual underwriting process, but also making sure the capital is being distributed throughout for the actual applicants as they go through the process. So it needs a third-party administrator. As we look at the second question being PPP grants and SBA or EIDL loans or grants, what we have seen is that there were some disparities as far as certain census tracts and zip codes who didn't receive a good number of PPP grants or loans during the first phase of the pandemic. And so what we're trying to do here is provide a much more nimble capacity as far as providing a program that may be a little more flexible in providing capital to those businesses that couldn't apply for an EIDL loan or couldn't apply for a PPP loan. So we have a little more flexibility to create the rules and regulations versus utilizing federal regulations that are pretty structured and stringent as far as getting capital out. So here, we want to utilize some of our own flexibility to address those needs. If we look at some of those zip codes that didn't really take advantage of the PPP loan, nor the restaurant program, nor the EIDL program, I think we were still marketing EIDL program grants up until December 31st, and numbers were still low within Nashville, Davidson County. As we look at the lottery system, I've utilized the lottery system in my previous capacity in Dallas. The reason why we chose the lottery system is that we wanted to give, those impacted zip codes or distressed zip codes an opportunity to, do the initial phase of applying for the program and making sure that, when those businesses that have all the resources and all the tools and all the 1099s and all their P&Ls kind of put together, if you're first come, first serve, and guess who gets the actual loan or grant first? Those individuals that have all those documents kind of put in place. If you create a 2-phase process, one where you do an intake process where you fill out your baseline information, and then once you get past that point, you fill out the actual application, then that gives an equal shot to everyone to actually, access this capital. If we had unlimited amounts of capital, yes, first come, first serve program would be great for everyone. But here we have $10 million, and as I explained before, we have 27,000 businesses that could, in some capacity, tap into this program. Now, I'm sure if we broke it down to data and revenues and census tracts and so on, it's numbers a lot less than that. But, we want to really try to address a good number of businesses. If I had all the resources, if we had all those resources, then yeah, we probably could do a first come, first served basis program. But what I've seen is that those businesses that had the resources and the applications and the tools were able to get the capital. And that's exactly what you saw with the restaurant redevelopment program. That's exactly what you saw with the PPP program. That's exactly what you saw with the EIDL program. Those businesses that had the resources and the accountants and the lawyers and all the other, support staff to kind of get those grant dollars, they were the ones that got the loans and grants first. And, what we saw from the federal data is that those individuals or businesses that didn't have the resources or the support system or the wraparound services, they were kind of left out. And I think you saw in the end of last year, or middle of last year, there was a carve out for minority-owned businesses to make sure that, hey, we're going to have a wraparound services. We're going to work with some of our CDFIs around the country to make sure that there's a carve out to provide capital to these minority-owned businesses. So in that capacity, I want to craft a lottery in which applicants have the right to, one, if you want a grant up to a certain number, you can do that. If you want a loan, there's a certain pathway for that. So you have a choice between choosing between a grant or a loan, but not both.
Okay, I've got Sarah, and then back to Councilman Sepulveda, and then Gamble. 1 second, let me get mics. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. You know, we were talking about the third-party vendor, and it's not the fact that one would be used. I mean, it makes perfect sense that they would have to rely on someone else because it's not reasonable to have it happen in a, you know, an office that doesn't have the adequate staff. And we spent, frankly, a lot of our time in the CARES Act thing looking at vendors. In this case, it's sort of it seems like it's a vendor that we don't know who it is, don't know if you know who it is or what the process would be of selecting that, because creating a successful program of loans and grants will depend a lot on that person. And I think sort of the difference to me is we spent so much time focusing on the qualifications of the vendors last time, and now we don't really have any information on that. So that was really the reason for my question. It wasn't questioning whether it's important to have one. And
Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had originally said I wanted Director Pogue to go first, and we have Clint Gwen here from Pathway. So I think if you could, Clint, if you could just share some of the conversation that you've had with Director Pogue and some of the thoughts that you had from CARES Act, what you've seen transpire in the months since, and how this program is different. That would be great. Oh, but I need to get you a microphone, sorry. There we go.
Thank you. We were honored to work on the CARES Act work. It was a monumental lift, I'll be honest, for our team. We had 26 people working on it nonstop for about 65 days to get all that money moved and deployed quickly. What we did see through that process, one of the questions that people answered as they came in through the online system was, have you received Paycheck Protection funding for your business? Because one of the requirements is we couldn't double pay somebody. And what we saw was about 95% of the folks coming through that door for those funds had not received Paycheck Protection grants or loans to be turned into grants. So that kind of alerted us to the need for a lot of technical assistance to get these people over the CARES Act hurdle. There were certain required documents that we couldn't give a grant unless we had proof of who they were, what their revenues were, what their impacts were. And that did cause a lot of people to fall out, in all honesty. The way we worked the process was they came in initially, and when they came in initially, they got a loan number that dates and time stamped it, or a transaction number. So we held for everybody, the second they hit the portal and filled out the first piece of information, we held or reserved whatever their request was. And then we would work through that whole list. For a lot of the folks, it took 2 and 3 weeks for us to get the information we needed to be able to approve that grant request. And that was with our staff going back and forth with them, helping them find the right document, getting them registered with the state. A lot of them had become inactive as businesses. They weren't keeping up with that information. And so that was a lot of what I would call technical assistance work that we had to do through the process. And then I think the last piece of that, it did cause us, as Courtney mentioned, in the last round of PPP, they did do a set aside for CDFIs for $10 billion. We did, at that point, start making PPP loans at Pathway Lending because we knew we had this universe of small businesses that had never gotten any. We did 195 PPP loans in about 3 months, and those totaled $2 million. So our average PPP loan was $10,000, as small as 750, and the largest, I think, was about 110. So there was a big gap in folks that had access. The way we were able to really increase the volume on the PPP as well as later on in the CARES Act grants was working with some of our partners like Connexion and others who there are some bookkeepers in some of these communities that we engaged heavily with them to help get us the information for their clients. That allowed us to move a lot more money more quickly. But there is, no matter what you do, for me to be able to get an audit, be prepared to withstand an audit from the state or the city, I've got to have certain information. And that was a big challenge, and we worked hard to work around it. But I think what Courtney is trying to create here and develop here is something that gives us some leeway in how we prove up the impact, which I think is key, not that it be an exact standard of 25% loss of revenue, expenses for this. It gives us a little more flexibility into approving the impact that the pandemic has had on businesses. I think extending it to March 31 of 2022 is really important so that we do catch the businesses that have now been impacted a second or a third time by the pandemic.
Okay, so I've got the order here. Okay. So let me get Van Rees. Sorry.
Great, thank you. We've had 1,213 Davidson County residents take this survey. And I'm gonna go back to the same issue because I don't feel like we have given the public an incentive to actually take this survey and to participate. And actually, to my post sharing this survey, someone said, raise your hand if you believe they will consider what you say. The illusion of believing elected officials would consider people over money. I'm gonna harp on this and I'm gonna continue to talk about this because we have no clear picture, is what I believe. We have a draft guide that we have not adopted. We have emergency coming every day, right? We have right now a trash emergency where we literally have trash that sits there over the weekend into next week, which is a health issue that isn't in our current plan. We have not considered that at all. That is not factored into this, into our draft guide. And I will vote for emergencies that are health emergencies, immediate, that need to happen like that. I want to vote for this. I believe in this. I believe what Councilmember Hurt is saying. I believe what Councilmember Toombs is saying, what the director is saying, what everyone in this room is saying, what Representative Love has said. I believe that. I believe this is a good plan and it's a great start. I do agree that more is needed, but I cannot in good conscience vote for this or anything else on this agenda today until we listen to the people. I know it's tough. I know it's tough because everything is an emergency right now. It's COVID-19. Everything is an emergency. We have food shortage. We have people who, because thanks to Councilmember Gamble, we put childcare in this survey, which is not in our draft plan, and it is one of the highest requests that we are getting. We don't have a clear plan, and I think that one meeting can get us there where we can do that. I think it's a great plan. If the committee decides, let's go ahead and vote for this, that's fine. I have questions too about the plan, right? For the Hispanic community, we mainly had one third party doing a lot of the outreach to the Hispanic community and distributing funds. For those members in the community who did not go through, the traditional pathway lending or chamber or any of the other source, my question is, for third-party vendors this go around, I would like more minority third-party vendors to participate in that, and I don't know if that means expanding the list or reevaluating who is distributing these funds, because I think it's important to see the success that happened through Conexión and through some of these other organizations where they were able to reach out to community members, where they were able to do their own marketing and really push, and so everyone knew where to go. So I want to make sure that happens. If that didn't happen, which I'm hearing is that it did not happen successfully, then I want to make sure that we address that this time around. I have a question about the map. It's a little hard to see. If you look at the darker and lighter blue, I don't know what. Is the low growth the lighter or the darker, because it's not very clear on this printout. So I have a question about that, if someone could answer that. But again, I want to stress the importance of having community input. I don't want to be a pain to anyone, but if I haven't been much, I've been pretty consistent about this specific topic, and there were concerns from other council members when we were just approving pretty much everything that came before us, right? If we didn't approve certain equipment at that point, we could have had a little bit more funding for other things. And so I want to walk away from this at our next meeting with a clear picture and a clear understanding so we could do our jobs properly. And I want to be able to do my job properly. I just don't feel like I can right now.
Councilmember Hurt, did you still have a question?
Thank you very much. I don't have a question, and with all due respect, Councilmember Sepulveda, the disparity speaks for itself. The community has been saying for decades that they need this. The urgency is there. It has been decades. And just like we went back and put more money in the Barnes funds, we can go back and put some more. But I do think we need to let the community know that we hear them and infuse some kind of funds. As Representative Love said, I think he spoke very, very well on the matter. We have to do it. You talk about the food desert that's there. We had a transportation program to try to get people to get to food. The population says that there should be 7 grocery stores in 37208, but it is only 1. And again, you talked about 37218. Same thing in that community, in that area. People cannot go on, those small businesses, as much as they would want to, and we've been talking about Yusuf Harris, the founder of Akibalon Images bookstore who recently passed. He was one of those individuals who had a business on Jefferson Street for 30 years, but he would not be one that would go to the Hub Nashville and tell you that he needs something. He's just not one of those individuals that do that, because he's going to be in his store working and making sure that he serves the customers. And that's what it is with most of those businesses there. They don't have the capacity. And it has been by design for them not to have the capacity. Even the ecosystem that serves them don't have the capacity to provide to them what it is that they need. That's what this resolution is doing. Is helping them get to that place so they can be better. And I don't want to personalize this to me, but I worked in a nonprofit by myself, for many, many years, trying to do the very best that I could. And with the limited resources, whether it was manpower, funds, an inventory of all of those things, it is just almost impossible. So they have spoken. It is there. The data is there, and it speaks for it themselves. And what happens in this Economic and Community Development Office is almost parallel to what happens with those small businesses. Just like He can't do it all. It's almost the same with the small businesses. It's almost parallel that they're doing the same thing, and all of it is by design. So, as a nonprofit leader, I learned at Belmont is that in nonprofit, the innovator has to be innovative. So, can we find innovative ways in order to make sure that we help these small businesses be better?
Okay, I'm trying to be sensitive to everybody's time. We've got, it's 4:30. And we have 3 other items to consider and the survey. So if we are going to consider a vote, Alex, I'm looking at you. I'm almost asking, do we want to advance a vote? I'm not saying what we're voting on, but if we're going to advance a vote for this, then we need to just stick to the specifics of what we want to recommend today. Is that it's a generic, are we moving forward? Because otherwise, if we're going to table this, then we're going to move on to the other 3 items. Okay. Okay. I've got Councilwoman Sepulveda and then Gamble.
Yes, I just want to respond real quickly because we are short on time to Councilmember Hurd's comments. The difference with the CARES Act funding is that we hired a nonprofit to go out and do the survey in the community. This time around, that's not the case. We're relying on people to give us their opinion. So as opposed to last time where we actually had community members that were out there doing the legwork, we don't have that this go around. I do appreciate that. Like I said, everything is an emergency during COVID-19, and that is why I did not vote for specific capital improvements, because I wanted to make sure that the capital needs were taken care of first. And we did capital improvements before we did economic relief. And so I see that Councilmember Gamble is going to make a motion, so I'll just give it to her.
And I'm going to say too, remember that as a committee, we talked about, we have 3 pieces of community information. We have the Equity Alliance report. We agreed that we could have them redo that report and we probably would not have any change. Everything that was in need is probably a greater need. So we still have that report. It's not that we didn't do that. There was a consensus, it won't look different. We have the social services community evaluation report that was presented to this committee, and this is the 3rd piece of that foundation. Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you. I agree with the sentiment that just like the affordable housing and the public safety improvements, this is an urgent need that we need to address today. My only problem is I don't think it's enough. I think we should add 10 million. I think the fact that our city does not have an economic development plan for a city of our size is a disservice, and I think we need to use this opportunity to include funding so that we can move forward with that, whether it's through a participatory budgeting process or what. But I want to make a motion that we approve, or that we recommend the $10 million request and add an additional $10 million for metro economic development, and that would include staffing, additional funding, et cetera, so that we can move that. Oh, go ahead.
The next item is requesting funding for a plan.
Okay,
So
well, then I'll hold that then.
I really hesitate us bundling too much that we don't have details on.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we did that with the Barnes Fund though, but in any case, I'm okay with holding off on the second 10 million, but I do want to make a motion that we approve or recommend the $10 million request for the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund. Thanks.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. So we have 5 voting. All in favor? Opposed? Do I have 5 in favor, 0 against? Go ahead.
I want to support the small business, but I don't know who's going to administer this fund. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Halfway.
And I just want to make sure it is set up, and it's got a really short time frame before it closes down. And last time we talked about how long it took to be able to get the word out into the community that might be eligible to participate. So I just feel like it's as much as I support the idea of providing this information, I feel like the program itself has a lot of kind of questions, begs a lot of questions that make it unclear whether it's really going to, looking at it retrospectively, whether it's going to achieve the purpose we're trying to achieve.
Go ahead. Pardon me? No, I asked anybody who not in.
Is Pathway going to be administering it for sure? Because I didn't.
Courtney, do you want to answer that?
That is the current plan as we were kind of work through, I guess, the agreement with Pathway and their fees and structure. So we definitely, like I said, we need a third-party vendor. And I believe the process of bringing a nonprofit vendor, Mary Jo can kind of explain that process, but utilizing the vendors that administer the CARES program and utilizing a much more robust, getting information out about the program, but also put some parameters about reporting is some of the things we're looking at and working with Pathway.
Well, and that's an example. If it for sure is Pathway, I mean, I know there's been some discussion about Pathway and its role, but that gives some comfort because we did talk to them extensively in connection with our first program and with respect to the updates and reporting that we would get. But again, when that's just not mentioned in here, it's just hard to vote blindly for it. It's not because I'm not supportive of what we're trying to accomplish from a goal standpoint.
Yeah, I want to say this is a tough one because of the constraint of time. There is no doubt that this is needed, that the time is now and not a month from now. But let me offer this context. The last go-around, I was not a member of this committee, but I participated in 3 or 4 meetings because I was on the other side of the table as Conexión América as one of those vendors that not only did technical assistance, but actually placed a little bit of money out in the community. There was also NBIC who also, if I recall correctly, they also did that. So I lived through the scrutiny that this committee, which I was not a part of at the time, went through and the thought process to make that decision. And so comparing those two, this feels very, very rushed to me. But I agree 100% with Sarah that if it's a known vendor, I'm good to go today. I also think this is not enough. But I also want to pull us back. I mean, I've said this a couple of meetings. Pull us back and look at the big picture, big strategy, which is what a lot of you are saying today. But it's like, have a much, much deeper conversation, not only about small business, but about the rest of all of this money. Now, I know we're pressed for time, and we're supposed to vote. And so I to the extent, I want to support this, and I will vote yes to the extent that it is a known vendor and that it is a program that is more nimble and flexible and targets those who didn't get help for whom the first go-around did not work, which is those more vulnerable business owners for whom the documentation, the timeline, all those things did not work, because really those are the ones that in the next 30 days needed the most.
So can I ask this committee, would you like to meet like next week to hash out details? Alex, if we publicly notice it, but what we will do is come to put together the parameters of the program and the resolution. So we would leave here today with, I can't say a commitment, but that the idea is we are advancing this, but we're not going to wait a month to do it. But this would allow us for the rest of our time today to get through our other agenda items and still spend the appropriate amount of time on this. So I'm going to ask you all that. Representative Love, I didn't want to cut you off. Did you still have a question?
I did have a question. Trying to work it through my mind the right way. And maybe it's a question for our members here. is a concern that we're not sure that the mayor's office will secure the right third-party vendor, and we want to have a name in place before we do that. The reason I ask because we're dealing with a larger sum of money at the state level, and in order to roll out our business recovery plan, we had to vote on getting an administrator. And we didn't know who the administrator was going to be, but we had parameters for what they could do. They had to handle a certain amount of federal money over the number of years, and it ended up being Second Harvest and I forget the other administrator, United Way. But when the vote was taken, right, small committee, 9, 10 folks, same concern, but we knew we also had to get out there. So I just want to, just for the clarity, so we don't have to wait, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just to figure out, what would get you to the place where you're more secure. And I apologize, this is the most vocal I've been in any of our CARES Act or ARP meetings, but it's because I saw what happened at the state level. I saw money that did not get to businesses, and that's why, for me, I'm pushing this so much, only because that's why when I asked the question, what would help you all get to a more comfortable place?
And I appreciate that question, because it is the right question. To me, it's hard when you're asked, especially when you're not part of a lot of ongoing council discussions about different priorities, to be asked to take some of this money when you have the community giving feedback about all sorts of different things, knowing that you've got a dwindling resource. I personally feel like small business support is critical, and it's something that we need to do. So if you're going to allocate money to it, you want to make sure that you're getting the most bang for the buck. And it seems reasonable to want to know whether or not, how it's going to be administered, because we're talking about loans, loan administration, loan paperwork. I think we've heard, from Pathway already that it can be labor intensive. You could have a situation where the best intentions just don't go very well because you don't have the right, management of the program. So I think asking these questions is a reasonable thing to do. I think the other thing is, I still am not sure whether or not we're trying to find new businesses that weren't supported by the CARES Act or the state funding, or whether we just really are ambivalent about that, because it may be that, anybody that's asking for help now, even if they got some help, it would have been relatively modest. It may not be relevant, but I just don't know the answer to that. So just trying to get some basics. It just seems reasonable before you approve something. I'm sure anyone that votes on legislation, they ask the questions to know what they're voting on. And that's all I'm trying to accomplish. It's not that substantively I'm not in favor of supporting grants and loans to small businesses, particularly in areas that really have not been served well by other resources.
So, again, like I said, we don't have the staff to administer a program of this nature, and that won't take place overnight. So there's a need for a third-party administrator. Having crafted these programs in other markets, we have gotten the general approval for a program and then done an RFP.
Courtney, can you get closer to your mic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on, but we're not reading.
And so you typically bring in a third-party administrator to kind of manage the program, from doing the loan underwriting to doing the actual intake process, to doing the typical credit analysis for that process, to doing the back-end loan administration. Yeah, you need a staff of about 30 or 35 people to do that. I have 3 people. I can't do that. We can't do it internally. So we have to bring in a typical CDFI, like a Pathway or a national CDFI to kind of administer this program. Time is of the essence. Now, I guess we can do an RFP process. I don't know what that looks like. I have never done it. I think I've been here, 9, 10 months. So I know with a RFP process that can be very elongated, and that takes a lot of time. Or we can utilize our current nonprofits that have kind of managed this process before and work with them creating some parameters that we know we want to address as far as making loans and grants in the stress areas of the city. but also looking at ways of doing better outreach and working in various pockets and segments of the population to make sure those communities are being addressed and engaged with. So that's my recommendation. That's why I kind of crafted this program in this capacity, because we saw a need based upon the data, but also based upon the conversations. I think I've probably spoken between 2,000 and 3,000 people since I've been here, either community meetings or one-on-one meetings or get down to the community and engaging with them. So I kind of heard them, and they asked us, where's the small business program? You know, one of the things before I even got here to Nashville, and I watched some of the council meetings from way back, and I heard the same question from Ms. Hurt when she asked a couple of my predecessors, how much money is set aside for small business? We're still asking the same question. It hasn't changed. So I'm trying to address that. I think we're trying to bring some capital and resources to address small business. And I think the next item we're going to bring before you creates a more robust plan and structure in the sense of providing a strategy to create a plan for economic development for Nashville, which is sorely needed. Yes, we have a great regional plan, but what is the actual local plan to address the needs? And how we best address small business, how we best address workforce, how we address the issues of food desert, how we address the issues of redeveloping some of our key corridors in the city from the various communities in Nashville.
Then let me just sort of ask the question the other way again. I just want to know that I've done the proper amount of inquiry to make sure that this $10 million is going to be as successfully implemented as possible. I do think the way to maybe to ask the question is, are you confident there's like a 9-week, I think, tail before this program closes in terms of people being able to send in an application, if I read this correctly? It's March 18th, is that right?
That is correct.
So are you confident that if the go button is hit and then it goes before council and gets approved, that you've got the resources through vendors or whoever and the parameters for the program and the ability to make outreach to those that need this support to actually have this completely communicated, the applications in, and the decisions made in 9 weeks?
Well, I believe in crafting this program in the sense that I think it's been done before. I think we have individuals, a third-party vendor that has done this before. So it's not bringing someone that's not aware of the rules and regulations or the timing. I'm well aware of the timing. I understand what the application would look like. I actually have one on file. I can craft or work with our vendor to actually create one. But also the underwriting process, the intake process, but also getting the word out and doing informational sessions. In the age of technology, we can do plenty of Zoom meetings to inform people. I think we can do in multiple languages here. I think we have staff that actually can help facilitate that, but also bring in other vendors to help facilitate that. So I'm very confident in my abilities and the capabilities of our third-party vendor to actually implement this program in a short period of time.
I'd actually like to, because we have the third-party vendor here, I would like to actually make sure that we think it can be done, but the person who actually has to do it and run the operation. So, and I think that I interpreted it slightly differently than you did, Sarah. The applications would all have to be in by March 18th, and then the lottery would happen by April 30th. I didn't presume that meant awards were made by April 30th. Courtney, what was your intention?
It was our hope to get the awards out by April 30th, so.
Say it again, I didn't hear.
It was our plan or intention to get the awards out by April 30th, so basically informing.
Checks cut?
Hopefully checks cut.
Okay. We didn't turn around CARES Act money that fast, and these are larger dollar amounts. Clint, can you?
I think that's a really, really hard time frame. Like I said, last time it was in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a pandemic. We took 26 people out of their daily job to do this. I don't know that I can do that this time in that short a time frame. I would like a longer time frame, and I'm sure that's something we'll have to discuss. I think you can reserve the funds somebody can make an application and reserve the funds, but as we saw last time, even with minimal amount of documentation and verifying, that they're registered with the state and they're an active business and those things, I think that's going to be a really tight time frame. And we can't dedicate 2/3 of our staff again like we did last time. We weren't doing any lending during the pandemic, so I had staff I could move over. I can't do that now. We're pretty full.
Councilmember Gamble?
Thank you. Is there a better time frame that we should put on here, or can we, is it necessary that we put the date of when the checks will go to, I think we need to have, of course, the application period and the application review time, but is it necessary that we put a date for when the checks would go out in this proposal or in the resolution?
It isn't. And Alex, I think that's correct. We don't have to have that level of detail in the resolution. I think what is possible, please stop me if I'm wrong, is that if you all want to make the allocation, that you have the absolute intention and spirit of the plan, and if Director Pogue and Pathway can then work through the details of the plan so that we are certain that we can deliver what we fund. There's a lot of things that happen that aren't in a resolution because we don't always have those details, but we want to make sure that we can't move forward without the funds appropriated. So we can at least appropriate the funds, know that they are outlined in this. The final plan can come back and would be the attachment to the resolution, which would go before council on February 1st. So that would give us between now and that filing, and the filing's next Friday, but it gives us that time frame to tweak those dates, get some agreed upon conversation, and move forward.
Yes, and I think.
Correct me.
I'll just say that you're acknowledging in the vote that Exhibit A will be modified. Usually, the exhibit is attached to the resolution, so that's kind of way to confirm that the committee is what they vote on. Accepting that there will be some modifications.
I'm trying to remember if we had this much detail in the Barnes Catalyst Fund. We did not, so that's what I thought. So I'm not sure why we have to have that much detail, but I do agree that we need to know exactly what we're funding. We need to know the time frame that the funding will be allocated, but I think some of the specifics that some committee members are looking for are not necessarily necessary for the recommendation of the funding request.
Okay. Councilwoman Toombs, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, so, because I'm thinking about the resolution that Councilwoman Hurd and I have already filed that sets aside, requests that money be set aside specifically for North Nashville and Bordeaux. And I just wanted to have a clear understanding as to whether or not this $10 million allocation would have any specific set aside for North Nashville and Bordeaux, because I need to know in terms of the legislation that I already have on file. No, Councilwoman Gamble made the motion, so.
I think for this particular, and from what I'm understanding from Mary Jo, please correct me if I'm wrong, I do want to address the needs that you expressed in your resolution, but it looks like there's a separate request, economic development plan policy request that we'll be looking at today, and perhaps those.
I don't think that addresses the North Nashville Bordeaux.
Okay.
I think, Director Pogue, correct me, I think the piece that addresses that area is the distressed areas.
Oh, okay.
That is not isolated to only North Nashville. I think that also includes Southeast
Right,
Nashville.
Southeast and some other areas,
So
right.
it's a start.
Right.
I think we all agree it doesn't have all the pieces.
So as we crafted this program, we created some parameters of what we thought would work and what is needed within the community. I don't think it's fair to me nor Clint to negotiate a contract from the floor based on timelines and so on. I think we can kind of work out and hash out those details about the timeline. I think we had down here, we would inform applicants by April 30th and then get the money out within the spring of 2022. Spring is typically June 30th, July 1st, somewhere around there, which is typical for most of these programs. You try to do an intake process, a preliminary review process, underwriting process, and then you inform the applicants within a certain time period. And then afterwards, you actually do the full underwriting and then get the money out the door. Correct me if I'm wrong, Clint, but that's what I'm accustomed to, and it takes a while. And hopefully, our goal is to get the money out in the spring of 2022, hopefully by June 30th, if not sooner.
Councilman Sepulveda?
For the resolution, why don't we do similar to the CARES Act where it was, what was it, 30% to minority-owned businesses? I can't remember at this point, but that would be a suggestion if there's going to be a resolution. Not specifically that amount, but doing something similar in the legislation.
Okay.
I was just going to say, and if I recall, that 30% number came from the Equity Alliance report as based on the number of businesses that were available to receive funding.
That is correct. Courtney, I don't know that I see, we have the distressed, which is more than 50% of the grants, but that doesn't imply minority-owned businesses, just that they are in distressed areas.
No, it doesn't, but it, based upon the map, and we'll get a better map that has better colors, you can definitely show or illustrate that it's in areas that have a large BIPOC population. So as we define minority, I guess that's up to this body to clarify what is minority, what does that mean? There's multiple definitions for minority, so I'll kind of leave it up to you. Is that MBEs or WBEs? Is that BIPOC businesses? How do you want to kind of define minority-based businesses here in Nashville?
Jose, you had a hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was being persuaded by the idea of not postponing a month, but a week, right? Nobody wants to come back again a week, but it just feels like it needs a little time to get more fully cooked. Last time, again, the perspective, last time, there was a lot of discussion about how are we reaching minority populations. And that included that 30%. I'm bringing those some of the vendors like Conexión Américas and BIC and others. Like that was part of what this committee's solution was at the time to address that. And we're sitting here a few months later saying, hearing and the numbers showing that really didn't fulfill the promise of what this committee thought was the right solution at the time. And so all I'm saying is I want to be sure that we're not sitting here a year from now looking back and saying it didn't work just because we rushed the vote today when there seems to be still some questions about the particularities of the program. Having said that, because it seems like the spirit of the program is that folks that are knowledgeable in the space and that there's the goodwill and effort to fully cook it. I want to get to a point where like, okay, let's just vote, let's go. But it just seems like there's just not a full, it's not fully cooked, the idea yet. And so again, I just don't want to be a year from now saying, because we were rushed, we didn't accomplish what we were trying to do.
Okay. Councilwoman Toombs?
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins. Committee members, I would, and I know we hate to get together for meetings. I attend a million meetings myself. But if you could reconvene next week, I would like to see money specifically set aside for North Nashville and Bordeaux. I understand that, you know, the previous language had the 30% set aside, and the numbers show that there was very little money that went into North Nashville and Bordeaux. And I don't want to, as a council person, vote for $10 million knowing that likely not too much of it is going to go to North Nashville and Bordeaux, which are the areas that I represent as the District 2 councilwoman. So I would like to see some specific language, and I am more than willing to work with Director Pogue on some tweaking of the plan. And I know there are some other questions about the plan, but I am really adamant about there being some money specifically allocated to North Nashville and Bordeaux. I think it's critical. Those are the areas that were most disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and so we need to make sure that we are specifically targeting those areas.
Do I have a motion from a committee member for what to do with this request this evening? Councilmember, Representative Love? Just made you a council member.
I have a parliamentary inquiry. There was a motion on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of took a vote. Sort of.
Yep.
That I recall.
And then I got questions that seem to backpedal the vote.
Right, but parliamentarily.
Do we want to finish that?
I mean, but I'm addressing this piece right here because we got a motion that we were dealing with, we have not disposed of yet. And there's a request to offer another motion. So how do we dispose of the current motion that we have to get to this other request?
Yeah, a couple ways. One, obviously, if someone had a motion to defer, that would take precedence over the current motion. However, the original movement could always modify or withdraw. And that's usually how we do in more informal committees like this. So that's what the first question I would ask is if the original movement wants to modify or withdraw.
Councilmember Gamble?
Yes, I'll withdraw the motion for the sake of allowing the motion to defer for 1 week so that we might get more information and clarification for committee members.
Is that a new motion?
Yes, that's a new motion.
Okay, so there is a new motion to defer for 1 week. We do have to make sure we have calendars in sync. I do want a quorum if we are going to meet 1 week. Is there a second? We can pick the time after, can we do questions during, I don't know if that's a second.
Yeah, he got it.
Are you seconding it?
Okay, I didn't hear that.
I did not hear anything. Can I take a question during
Now
that?
you can have discussion.
Okay, I have a second from Councilwoman Sepulveda, and you have a question.
Can we send out an email for those who aren't present so we can make sure that, since you were saying we don't have to decide what time and day to day, just so everyone knows. And just for clarification, and the previous vote, the abstention wasn't read, and so I think there was confusion as to the exact count.
That's why I didn't read a vote. I didn't know what the count was yet. I will say, I think we're looking at Wednesday. We don't have to pick the exact time. If somebody, just if you know for sure next Wednesday doesn't work, we need to know now. But yes, I will send it out to the whole committee. All right, I have a motion to defer 1 week, tentatively Wednesday. A second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Let's use hands. I have 4 in favor. Those against? I have 1 against. The motion passes, 4 in favor, 1 against. Okay. May I ask, yes, Representative Love? Let me get your mic.
I do want to be clear to the council lady, I support the notion of setting aside funds for the neighborhood in which I particularly have lived for quite some time and was born in. I just don't want to get bogged down in delaying these funds getting out. And so that's what my no vote represents, is expediency in getting some funds out the door. So I just want to make that clear.
The filing deadline is next Friday, so there'll still be time to get the resolution filed.
Okay. Thank you all for a very good conversation. I know this isn't easy, and when I tell people that this committee really asks a lot of questions and works through each of these to make sure we have, you know, the best recommendation we can move forward. This is just another great example of that, so thank you. We will move to the second item related to, with Director Pogue, which is, you did have this in your pre-read, an economic plan and policy along with a market value assessment. So I think the groundwork's been pretty well laid, but certainly give us an idea of this is a $1.1 million request. If you could just give us a little bit more of a general understanding of what this would do.
Sure. The money we're requesting here is for creating the city's first economic plan and policy, economic development plan and policy, which is typical for most cities. That's typically done over a 9 and 12-month period. And it covers basically 4 different phases. So when you craft a plan, phase 1 is typically stakeholder engagement, forming a steering committee that's very diverse and represents the actual city that we're in, but also creating the focus groups, therefore getting all the input from those various community groups and focus groups, from small business to education to the workforce to community colleges to the Black church to the various entities that make up Nashville, to make sure they're all involved in this process. And then having a number of town hall meetings, both in person and or virtual, to gather input from the citizens that make up Nashville. Phase 2 is basically your data gathering and analysis, which entails the small business engagement, reviewing existing plans, but also doing a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and doing a peer analysis of how we compete or position ourselves against different cities. Let's take, for example, Seattle. Firstly, has the same amount of population, about 715,000 people. We have roughly about 715,000 people here. And in the sense of looking at how they do economic development and how we do economic development, they have a staff of about 35 people, and the annual budget is about $15 million every year to support economic development. So, and looking at our peer cities, where are our true peer cities? Is it Seattle? Is it New Orleans? Is it Miami? Is it Dallas? Is it Austin? And so on. How we best position ourselves against those peer cities. But also understanding our workforce ecosystem. Do we have capacity? What are some of the things we should focus on and work on? And also look at the capacity of our organization as it relates to economic development. Phase 3 would be our target industry analysis. So what are some of the key industries we should focus on as a city, as a metropolitan area? What value do those businesses bring to the area? Are they inclusive? Are they equitable? Do they represent Nashville well? Are these the type of companies that we want to see in Nashville? If we have issues of food deserts and lack of quality retail in certain corridors, how we kind of bring those companies to the forefront and attract those companies to the area. And phase 4 would be more or less our strategic goals for Nashville and Davidson County. You know, we do a matrix. Typically, you have short-term goals, 1 year or less. You have the midterm goals, 1 to 3 years, and you have your long-term goals, 3 to 5 years. Typically, an economic development plan is done every 5 years for a city. We haven't done one for Nashville. We have a regional plan done by the Chamber. You have Partnership 2030, 2020, and so on, but we have never done a local plan for Davidson County, Nashville. So this will be the first time we have done this, and so that's where you kind of allow the consultant or the third-party vendor, because it would not be fair to the citizens for me to go out and write a plan. You typically have a third party sort of impartial to create a plan for the city, and therefore gathering all the data, but also doing a true assessment of the capacity of our various entities that perform economic development. So if they are looking at how we compare against our peer cities, staffing needs, budget allocation, is it another entity within our organization we need to form, say, for example, an Office of Economic Development or a Economic Development Corporation. So that's where we have the third party and a plan put together to address that. But also looking at workforce development. What are some of the things we should address from our hard-to-employ population? What are some of the key industries we should focus on to really get our workforce ready for the jobs of the future? Working with our public school system, but also working with our community colleges and our four-year institutions. And then looking at ways to make sure we have an equitable and inclusive economy that works for all Nashvillians. So we're working with all our populations that make up the city of Nashville, Metropolitan, Davidson counties to make sure they're all being brought into the tent and we're all working together to really address the needs of Nashville. So that's what a plan for economic development does. This would be the first time we've done this, I guess, for Metropolitan Nashville, which kind of tells our story, but also helps us address a number of needs from that make up the economic development sphere, which entails business attraction, retention, expansion, small business, workforce development, and then development and redevelopment. So this is what a plan basically would do. And then on the back end, we have a market value analysis, which also is another tool that kind of works with the plan, which we all understand we have very limited resources for economic development. And so how we best utilize those resources by utilizing a data-driven process where it's a very transparent data-driven process of how we allocate our resources to the key areas of the city and look at ways to and make our key investments to support distressed urban real estate markets, but also creating wealth in certain markets of the city, and also helping to attract investors, but working with the city government and our various nonprofits to make sure we prioritize the actions of the city and leverage both public and private investment. A number of cities have utilized a market value analysis, Akron, Ohio, Baltimore, Bethlehem, Dallas, Detroit, Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Memphis, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, San Antonio, St. Louis, Washington, D.C., and so on. So they all have utilized some type of a market value analysis to both set their policy for economic development and policy for housing and workforce. So with that being said, I ask for your support for these actions and these sorely needed items for Metropolitan Nashville.
Councilman Sepulveda and then Gamble.
Thank you. Who would be in charge of creating the steering committee? Who gets to decide which members are on there?
Typically, you work with the director. When I've done this before, it was the director working with the city manager. So in this case, it would be me in this case, and working with city management, working with the council members. So selecting a steering committee that will be balanced and well representing Nashville.
I want to make sure that we stress different voices. I think it's important to have diverse voices. I think it's also important to have labor and worker voices, because one of the problems we've run into in this city is that we enter into deals that are good for companies, but they're not always great for communities. And so what ends up happening, and you know this, communities get displaced or work what's going to be best for that particular community. There's no benefits, I would say, at the end of the day. And so making sure that we have those key worker, labor, and community voices at the table, that would be important for a steering committee. So I would just stress that. And immigrant.
Absolutely. So I think having done this before, you have a steering committee that's typically between 20, in some cases 40 people. In that case, that would allow each council member to select a person. If that's maybe too large, we can look at other pathways to make sure we represent those various segments of the population, as you just pointed out, to make sure there's someone on the steering committee to voice their concerns. And also that's why you have the 20 to 30 focus groups to make sure that, as we go through this process, it is truly a stakeholder engagement process in which it's very, very transparent, but also includes a number of individuals that can voice their concerns and be involved throughout the process, because This is not my plan. It's a plan for the citizens of Nashville and what they want to see for their city as far as the terms of economic development. So,
Councilmember Gamble?
Thank you. And just to follow up on Councilmember Sepulveda's point with the steering committee, with the participatory budgeting process that we just went through, the steering committee consisted of members that were nominated or recommended by council members, by community leaders, by the administration, and others. So using that similar process seemed to work well. So using that similar process might be helpful here. My question is, does this amount, the $1.1 million request, include staffing upgrades that we need in the Office of Economic Development? Also, does it include any additional assistance, outside vendor assistance that may be needed? For example, with participatory budgeting, an outside vendor was hired to help with the outreach, setting up the town halls and meetings and following up with community members and such. So just wondering if this proposal includes funding for those things.
so no, it does not include funding for staffing for my role for economic development. What this does do is actually create the plan and policy to look at what is the actual need for creating an office of economic development. Is it a 5-person office? Is it a 10-person office? Is it like Seattle, where we go out and create 35 people and come back to you as a council member and ask for a budget set aside of $14 million, which is comparable to a city of this size? But what this does do is really look at the city and utilizing a third-party consultant to kind of come in to look at Nashville and create a plan and strategy that includes all these various voices that make up Nashville, from the business community to local community leaders to labor to the workforce, to make sure they're all involved in this process, and therefore creating a truly transparent process. Having, we don't have the staff internally, once again, to kind of lead this effort, and I don't think it'd be very fair if we led this effort internally. So that's why we have a third party that can kind of manage the various community meetings, both virtually, in person, but also overseeing 25 to 30 focus groups, but also managing a steering committee that kind of really drives the process. The steering committee drives the process and voices, where we should be going as far as the actual creating of a plan. So this is really the first step to looking at, if we need an office of economic development. What is the actual size of that office? What is the capacity of that office? What is our policy for providing incentives for economic development? So this is what the structure or initial first step to kind of creating that plan and policy.
Okay, so for clarification, this is not to actually develop the plan, the economic development plan for the city. This is to the feasibility of what is needed to move to the next step of developing the plan.
No, this is a plan. So this
Develops the plan, it doesn't
the plan
execute
and
it.
policy.
Okay.
From that plan, you'll have your recommendations. Do we need an office of economic development?
To implement the plan.
If we have a plan or
Right.
office, what is the size of the office? What are some of the key industries we should focus on? What are the things we need to focus on as far as workforce? What is the right small business program we should really be addressing to support our small businesses here on a long-term basis? It's a technical assistance, it's a capital, it's a mentorship, it's the apprenticeships, and so on. So all those things have to be kind of wrapped up into a plan for economic development in our policy. Are we providing the right incentives for a transaction to attract companies to, North Nashville and Southeast Nashville? How we attract the grocery store? What is our incentive policy?
Right.
We haven't really laid that out. If we're providing incentives, what are some of the things we want to see tied back to workforce and local community investment for these actual projects? That's what an economic development plan and policy does. So this is the first step to actually, one, getting someone on board to draft that, and then once they have that, they'll create our goals and objectives, working with our steering committee to really address what the key needs for Nashville are.
So just for clarification for me and the viewing public, this request is what is needed to develop our economic plan policy, not implementation of the plan, but just to develop the plan policy in
That is
the
correct.
simplest terms.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Sarah Finley?
Yeah, just a general question about the sort of the scope on the economic development. This is kind of a similar question we've asked really everybody that's been up here. I know with your office, you're charged with economic development, and so there's some things that would be funded through the city budgeting process, and there's some things that are, more appropriate for ARP funding. And I'm just trying to get a sense, when I think of our guiding principles, a focus on vulnerable populations and on disproportionate impact of the pandemic is kind of a high priority. Just would love to get your color on, is this overall program something that is specifically relevant to the ARP, guiding principles, or is it something that, whatever reason, Metro was not in a position to fund that would have been, requested even if we didn't have the ARP funds? I'm just trying to get a sense of that.
I think you look at what we drafted here, and plans are created to address all the needs of a city. What we know, there's definitely a need in our minority community, in underserved areas of the city, in utilizing ARP in a sense of the actual federal regulations. It allows to utilize the dollars for capacity like this to draft a plan for both an ongoing strategy, but also a recovery strategy, which is sorely needed also. So in doing this, this falls within one, addressing our need for a well-balanced economic development strategy for the city. Two, crafting a recovery plan tied to our businesses here, but also the citizens in Nashville. And three, looking at other cities that have utilized ARP dollars, they have actually crafted a plan, but also a recovery strategy tied within that plan. So there's been a pivot over the past year to address communities and businesses in various areas to recover. So we are doing both simultaneously. Being that we never had a plan, this kind of brings a recovery plan and an actual plan together simultaneously.
Any other questions? Jose?
Just quickly, I'm curious, the MVA, that's like normal, not normal because we haven't done one, not everybody has one, but that's just something, you go to a third party and I guess I'm envisioning it's kind of like an appraisal of the city, just the way that you would go do an appraisal of a real estate property. This is an analysis, affirms that this is what they do, this is their expertise, and they'll do that assessment of, is that what the MVA is?
It's kind of, you could say that in a certain sense, an appraisal on steroids, but it also looks at our commercial corridors, the number of businesses that have been created, the number of businesses that have failed, what are some of the key industries you should focus on some of our corridors. If these businesses are failing, why are they failing? What are some of the ways we should craft new programs or strategies for these commercial corridors? In the sense of our housing, what is the best place to invest our resources? Is it for public safety? Is it for housing? Is it for economic development, for workforce? We know we have a very limited, allocation of resources. So what are some of the best areas to really maximize and leverage our resources, both from a public standpoint, but also from a private standpoint? And also looks at ways to attract private capital to some of these key areas of the city. I think we have a very nice downtown, but how we look at some of our other areas of North Nashville and Southeast Nashville in employing public and private capital in those areas.
Is it like economic, who does this type of programs? Is it firms that specialize in economic analysis or
Economic analysis.
Your typical consulting firms like, the big firms? Or what type of firm does this kind of work? Just curious.
There are economic development agencies or offices that specialize in housing, economic development, workforce. So the Reinvestment Fund out of Philadelphia specializes in this. There's a number of other entities that also do the same type of work, but it's a very specialized, targeted assessment that looks at a community, but also looks at ways to kind of do the appraisal or assessment of a community and how to best utilize our current resources, but also look at ways of creating new tools to leverage those tools and programs for some of our underserved areas.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for this request? Councilmember Gamble? Sorry.
Motion to recommend approval of the request for $1.1 million to develop an economic plan policy for Nashville and Davidson County.
Is there a second? I hear a second. Is there any other discussion or question? All in favor, please raise hands. I have 4 in favor, against. Raise your hand. Abstention. So I have 4 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. Okay. Director Pogue, thank you for all your time today and sharing your expertise and how to move the city forward.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, committee members.
Okay, yes.
Bring this up because I know the quorum, but I've got to go because I've got to chair a meeting somewhere else. I'm really pressed for time today. I don't know what these I hate.
We can do a couple things. We can proceed with conversation, and when we meet next week, I guess we can make recommendations. Or if we feel like we only have 4 of the 9 committee members and we don't want to have the conversation, then I think we just have another meeting next week with a little bit more on the agenda than we thought. Okay, I have a motion for us to then, I guess, adjourn. And we will pick up this agenda next week. And not only will we discuss the Small Business Recovery Fund, but also the other items. And so is that, I guess I need to vote. I heard a motion for that. Do I have a second? Second. Any other conversation? All in favor? I see 5 in favor, 0 against. We are adjourned. I want to apologize. We had 3 folks who were here, and I hope that you all can make it next Wednesday. Thank you for hanging out with us. Preview to come. And I know you have to go, Jose. Yeah. Is this Representative Love? I know you have Wednesdays. Is 3 o'clock next Wednesday? Do we just want to pick the same time? Okay, I'm going to put out the email that's proposing this. If you do have a conflict, let me know, and we'll see that we can get the other committee members.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.